Coming up on Bridge City News, the recent COVID-19 outbreak in our region includes a church in Lethbridge County, a special honor for a Lethbridge school teacher who received a Prime Minister Award for Excellence, and Mike Pence and Kamala Harris debated last night, and one of the hot-button topics was how the Trump administration has handled the COVID-19 pandemic.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Alberta Health says there are now 364 cases of COVID-19 in Alberta, including 276 in Edmonton. There are 77 people in hospital, including 13 in intensive care. There are active coronavirus alerts or outbreaks in 170 schools, which represents around 7% of the schools in the province. Alberta Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, says these schools currently have 370 active cases in total.
This number includes 72 schools that are on outbreak, including 14 currently on the watch list. Once again, I want to remind everyone that we are defining 2 cases as an outbreak, which is a very low threshold and reflective of a very cautious approach. It also takes 28 days or 4 weeks with no new cases before a school comes off of outbreak, so many of these schools have not had new cases recently.
Hinshaw adds that in-school transmission has occurred in 27 Alberta schools. Across the province, there are 2,097 active cases, including 92 here in the South Zone. Alberta Health has confirmed to Bridge City News that there are now 37 cases of COVID-19 in Lethbridge County. Our area is now on the watch list for the virus. There have also been 23 cases linked to a church in Lethbridge County. Now, another media outlet reported that it was the Colehurst Good News Centre, but Alberta Health was not able to confirm that with Bridge City News. Tom McMillan, Assistant Director of Communications with Alberta Health, says health officials are conducting contact tracing and ensuring anyone at risk of exposure is being isolated and tested. McMillan adds that the best way for Albertans to protect themselves is by practicing physical distancing, staying home if sick, and to follow all public health guidelines available. The Alberta government announced today that the construction for the Red Crow College will create around 270 new jobs. The project will see construction of the new 9,888 square meter campus at Kainai, replacing the one destroyed by fire in 2015. Total cost for the new college will be $48 million, with $20 million being funded by Ottawa. The remaining funds will be provided by Kainai and the Red Crow Community College. Now, in a release, Chief Roy Fox had this to say: "Education is a way forward for our people. Through our $20 million contribution to the new campus facility, we are contributing to the positive future of our youth. On-reserve educational opportunities for students is an important factor in the economic, social, and cultural well-being of our community." Members of the Lethbridge Police Service will be participating in a new initiative called ABLE, or Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement. The purpose of the program is to teach all staff how to intervene in a situation out in the field or in the workplace. The program is also described as a strategic and tactical way for officers to prevent misconduct and reduce mistakes with training.
It's actually a really scientific-based program, and there's lots of sociologists and psychologists that show there's scientific evidence as to why there's inhibitors in the workplace for people to intervene. So it's not that anyone doesn't have good ethics, but there's actually sociological inhibitors that prevent people from knowing how to or when to do that. So what this does is provides a toolkit, just like if you were learning how to tactically communicate with somebody or even shoot your gun. There's certain steps that make you a better person, and if you practice it more, you get better. So this is actually just a strategic tool and kind of template for our officers and employees to know, okay, if I say something once and somebody doesn't change their behavior, how do I now take it to that next level?
The Lethbridge Police Service was the only Canadian police service in Canada to be chosen for this program. This is International Mental Illness Awareness Week. Today, SACPA touched on the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has wrought upon mental health and mental illness. Brad Moser is a registered psychologist, and he says the importance of differentiating between the two is paramount.
So mental illness are health conditions such as major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and many others. But they are health conditions in which different areas of our life are affected. So our social life is affected, our work life, our home life. then mental health is something that we all experience. Mental health is a positive term. We have our physical health, such as going to the doctor and exercising. Then we also have our mental health, which takes into effect a lot. It's not just mental, like our thoughts, our beliefs, our self-talk. It has to do with our emotional health, our behavioral health, and also our physical health as well.
For more information on SACPA, you can always visit their website. A Lethbridge school teacher has been awarded a Prime Minister's Award for Excellence Certificate in the field of early childhood education. Lynn Watrickish from Westminster Elementary School is changing the lives of many youth. As Ainsley O'Reilly explains, it all started with a partnership involving a local researcher.
We're hoping to make a difference for society. We're hoping that in 20 years from now, we'll have better health, better wealth, and less crime in our societies because kids are doing better as a result of this early training.
It's called the Building Brains and Futures Program. It started 7 years ago at Westminster School. The project involves 10 games and a curriculum for kids aged 3 to 5, which aims to improve their cognitive function.
Brain has the highest level of plasticity that it's going to have. They have the most connections that they're ever going to have. And so if we can utilize strategies and information that we know to build on that and build a strong foundation, I think that that's so key.
The more that we can strengthen pathways in their brains in healthy ways, in ways that are going to help them as they grow to organize themselves, to get along with other people, to learn better, to control their emotions, these kinds of things are huge at this age.
Lynn Watrickish, recipient of a Certificate of Achievement through the Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence, took the U of L's Dr. Robin Gibbs research and brought it to life.
So she was working with children who, for the most part, all had issues regarding their typical development. They were behind. And she brought these kids not only up to a standard where other children were, she says these kids are now receiving academic awards.
Playing with your child, interacting, using some of these strategies to build executive function skills will absolutely make a difference.
Dozens of early childhood educators across the province are using the program. New games have been added, and some have been translated into Blackfoot. Buildingbrains.ca is where you can find the program. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
In today's society, it is so very important to help give kids direction and to empower them to believe in themselves. Dana Holland is the founder of Bold and Brave, and she says when it comes to helping children choose a career or a direction in life, education is so important.
I want every teen that comes to know they're welcome, to know that they're able, to know that they can accomplish anything as long as they have grit and they pursue their dreams and they do the things they need to do, like get educated about things they're interested about. Okay, how do you do that? You go find somebody who knows about it and give them these tools and these skills to help them realize that really anything's possible regardless. I guess a huge part is regardless of your situation.
Catch the full interview with Dana Holland of Bold and Brave and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our program. A prominent member of the Lethbridge Hurricanes has been drafted into the NHL. Defenseman Alex Cotton was selected 132nd overall in the 5th round of the 2020 draft on Wednesday. Cotton was picked by the Detroit Red Wings.
It's a hard feeling to describe, to be honest, but I'm just super excited and super happy. It's been a goal of mine for my whole life. Yeah, I found out I was just sitting on my couch with my family at home watching the TV, and I saw my name pop up, and I was just, all my emotions came out of my body at one time. Really, I was kind of overwhelmed. It was super exciting and super humbling as well.
Cotton became only the second Hurricanes defenseman to reach the 20-goal mark in a single season last year. When it comes to post-secondary institutions, there seems to be a very strong cancel culture, especially when it comes to student unions. Now, that's according to James Kitchen, a lawyer with the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. He says there appears to be a growing threat to freedom of expression on many Canadian campuses.
Generally, their policies are terrible because it's all social justice oriented type policies. And, they don't tolerate dissent. They don't tolerate different opinions, right? If there's some, conservative student that's saying something they don't like, that maybe questions BLM, for example, they want to shut that down. right? So very few student unions in the country, regardless of how good the university is, are good on free speech. It's not there.
Lawyer James Kitchen with the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms will also discuss how various Canadian colleges and universities ranked in their recent Campus Freedom Index. That's coming up later in our program. The Law Society of Alberta says lawyers in the province will have to take Indigenous cultural training. The Society's board says the mandatory training is set to begin next year. It says the decision is part of its commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action. The group says lawyers will have 18 months to complete the 6 hours of training. As churches have begun reopening their doors for prayer and worship since the unexpected COVID-19 shutdown, there have been new normals. BCN's Loris Alexander was at the Central Church of Christ, where she reports barriers are up between pews in order to allow full access to God.
Since Sunday, March 23rd, 2020, the Central Church of Christ has not had a single church service in their building.
We had 2 services out in the parking lot. One in September with about 60-some people, and one just last Sunday, which we thought we would be in the building, but the logistics of getting it ready negated that. So then we were outside in the parking lot again with about 51 people. And so this actually, Thanksgiving Sunday, gets to be a chance when it'll be our first in-the-building service.
So what did preparation entail? Plexiglass between pews, masks, hand sanitizer, and designated entry and exit doors.
Alberta Health Services has been really fantastic in helping churches still do something. But the faith community is a pretty huggy, embracing, and managing them is like herding cats, I think. And so we're hoping that all of our people will go, this is what we need to do now.
Cooper says despite so much uncertainty, one passage brings him hope.
We work with an Ethiopian community, and out of their leadership, a passage surfaced from Galatians 6, verse 2, which says, carry one another's burdens and thus fulfill the law of Christ. And so for us, it's how do we engage with the burden of COVID? How do we help carry that with our brothers and sisters so that they feel safe, they feel the great opportunity to worship, they've got lots of freedom to be able to be socially engaged, to pray together, to worship together. Those are dynamics that are huge. And this idea of carrying someone's burden, that for us is the heartbeat of what we do.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
A recent study revealed that 4 in 10 Christians in the United States say they believe that the Bible is ambiguous on abortion. Now, the finding was part of Arizona Christian University's American Worldview Inventory 2020 survey. Now, according to the survey, 44% of Christians said they think the Bible is ambiguous in its teaching about abortion. 34% of self-identified Christians said they think abortion is morally acceptable if it spares the mother from financial or emotional hardship. The study also found that 34% of self-identified Christians reject the idea that marriage is defined as being between a man and a woman. 40% of self-identified Christians also said that lying is morally acceptable if it advances personal interests or protects one's reputation. It appears as though provinces in central Canada are seeing a second wave of COVID-19. The case count in Ontario is climbing toward the 1,000 mark every day. The province is reporting close to 800 new cases and 4 more deaths from the virus. Meanwhile, in Quebec, Premier François Legault announced his province has recorded 1,078 new cases along with 9 new deaths. Legault is urging people to stay home this Thanksgiving long weekend. Saskatchewan Party leader Scott Moe says if he's re-elected on October 26th, he will provide new supports for seniors. Moe promised his government would reduce the cost of ambulance calls for seniors and increase the monthly benefit to those with low income. He says the maximum cost for an ambulance call would drop from $275 to just $135. He says his party also has a plan to help those with low income.
Over the next 4 years, we will boost the seniors' income plan benefit to $360 a month. That will be a 33% increase for about 14,000 Saskatchewan seniors, and 4 times what it was when the Saskatchewan Party formed government in 2007.
Moe added that as part of his re-election strategy, he would also hire 300 new continuing care aides to help those who are most vulnerable. The Trudeau government is doubling up a COVID-19 fund for groups that help abused women. It will be topped up by $100 million. Gender Equality Minister Marianne Monsef says the pandemic has made the conditions worse for women and children who are vulnerable to violence. The latest data says 1 in 10 women is concerned about the possibility of violence in the home. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence defended the Trump administration's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic last night during a debate with Democratic challenger Kamala Harris. Harris called it the greatest failure of any administration. The novel coronavirus has so far claimed 210,000 lives in the United States.
The Vice President and the President were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you.
The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about.
Now here's a cute little story of 4 young cancer survivors who met while in treatment in Florida. The children did not let the COVID-19 pandemic keep them from their annual reunion.
I miss you. Me too. I wish I could hug you guys. Me too. Me too. I miss you. I miss you too.
Zoom instead of being in person, it was hard, I think, for them to understand why they couldn't be together. So they're kind of awkward. In real life, they're never like, they always fall back into place right where they left off.
I had to stay in the hospital for 150 years.
I know that the girls as well as us look forward to it every year. And just in the theme of all things COVID, at least we could do this virtually versus not doing it at all.
I lost 7. I lost 4. I like that we're all healthy. I think I lost 5.
It's something that just continues even off treatment. It's a world that we'll forever live in. So any awareness that we can bring to something that a lot of people think is very rare, we appreciate.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
We love you guys.
Thank you.
That is so cute. We had lots of cloud cover again today, but still nice and warm, and the above seasonal temperatures will continue for the short term. Complete weather details are on deck. We had another beautiful day in southwestern Alberta, a great time to go out for a picnic, enjoy the leaves changing colors. The warm weather will continue for now, but then may cool off just in time for the weekend. Jeanette Rocher is here now with all of the weather details.
We could see a slight chance of showers this evening with a southwest wind gusting to 50 kilometers per hour and a low of 5 degrees overnight. Looking ahead to Friday, a mix of sun and cloud and winds gusting to 50K as well. High near 22 tomorrow. For our long weekend, Saturday, mix of sun and cloud, high of 22. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for Sunday with a high of 13 degrees. And on Thanksgiving Monday, sunny skies and 13 degrees as well. Looking ahead to Tuesday and Wednesday, high of 19 on Tuesday with a mix of sun and cloud. Mix of sun and cloud also expected for next Wednesday with a high of 13 degrees. The almanac tells us that this time of year we should be expecting highs of around 16 degrees and average lows of 2 degrees. Our high temperature on this day was back in 1984. It was 28 degrees, and our low temperature was -11, and that was in 1985. Sun rose this morning at 7:42 a.m. and our Thursday evening sunset 6:55 p.m. So let's take a look at what's happening across the country for our highs tomorrow. Over on the west coast, Victoria could see a 40% chance of showers. Chance of rain also in Vancouver. They could see 15 to 25 millimeters of rain. Mix of sun and cloud in Edmonton with a high of 13. Lots of sunshine expected in Calgary with a high of 17. Over in Saskatchewan, mix of sun and cloud for both Regina and Saskatoon. Saskatoon's high 13. High of 15 in Regina and a high of 17 degrees in Winnipeg tomorrow under sunny skies. Over in Toronto, sunshine, 17 degrees over there. 15 is the high in Ottawa. Montreal's high 13 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud. There is a frost advisory in effect for Ottawa and Montreal overnight and into tomorrow morning as well. Sunshine expected in Fredericton with a high of 10. Same thing for Halifax. Halifax could see lots of wind as well. Same thing for Charlottetown. Wind gusts of up to 60 km per hour are expected with a high of 10, lots of sunshine, and a 60% chance of showers in St. John's in Newfoundland with a high of 8 degrees.
Parliamentary Budget Officer Yves Giroux says the federal carbon tax will have to rise in order for Canada to meet emission reduction targets under the Paris Climate Accord. The tax is already set to increase to $50 per tonne of emissions by 2022. But Giroux estimates it will have to rise to $117 per tonne by 2030 if it is applied to all industries. If the government puts a cap on the levy for big industrial emitters, households would have to make up the difference. Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachel Harder was not happy on hearing the news that Canadians will be paying on another carbon tax. This one, called the Clean Fuel Standard, is slated to be rolled out in 2022. Harder says this new tax will hit farmers and ranchers pretty hard.
Why are we being punished for heating our homes? For those who are in rural Canada or in small centers, why are they being punished for fueling their cars so that they can go to work, so they can provide for their families? Like, in what world does this make sense? And then let's just reconsider this point one more time, that the rich can buy an offset. That doesn't stop greenhouse gas emissions. But let's consider one more point, shall we? In Canada, we produce less than 2% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. That's right, less than 2% are produced in Canada.
Harder adds that the focus should really be on some of the world's biggest polluters, including China and India, which contribute a lot more greenhouse gas emissions than Canada. Economists say home building activity remained strong in Canada last month, even though housing starts dropped 20% from August. CMHC says the seasonally adjusted rate of housing starts were just under 209,000, down from 261,500 units in August. Economists say average starts were up 1% above 2019 despite COVID-19 containment measures. They say the issuance of permits remains strong, suggesting still solid momentum for housing starts in the near term. Air Canada says it has completed the sale of 9 Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft for $485 million. The airline says it has also secured long-term commitments to lease the planes back in a move designed to offset the cash drain from COVID-19. Company officials say the airline has raised almost $6 billion in liquidity since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Air Canada says it will explore other financing arrangements to expand its cash position as travel restrictions continue to take a toll on the airline. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 106 points on the day to finish at 16,534. The Dow was up 122 points to 28,425. The S&P 500 was up 27 points to 3446, and the Nasdaq was up 56 points to 11,420. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.33 to $41.28 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 3 cents to $2.64. Gold was up 13 cents to $18.93.96 US an ounce, and silver was up a penny to $23.84 US an ounce. Wheat is at $255 per metric ton, barley's at $249, canola's at $4.88, and corn is at $269 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 48 cents to $110.35, feeder cattle were down 45 cents to $138.88, and lean hogs were up 48 cents to $77.58. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 75.76 US.
Today's market numbers are brought to you by The Meat Box, your local butcher where quality matters.
Recapping one of our top stories this hour, Alberta Health has confirmed to Bridge City News that there are now 23 COVID-19 cases linked to a church in Lethbridge County. Now, another media organization reported that it was the Colehurst Good News Centre, but Alberta Health was not able to confirm that to Bridge City News. Tom McMillan, Assistant Director of Communications with Alberta Health, says health officials are conducting contact tracing and ensuring anyone at risk of exposure is being isolated and tested. It is important to give our kids direction and to empower them. Now, that's according to Dana Holland, founder of Bold and Brave. Hear the best ways empowering your kids in an interview with BCN's Jeanette Rocher next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Bikers Building Bridges is hosting their second annual Halloween drive-through trunk or treat, taking place at Exhibition Park's North parking lot on Halloween night going from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Come out for a spooky good time, decorate your vehicle, and hand out candy safely. For details about this event and to register your trunk, visit bikersbuildingbridges.com. The Juno Beach Centre is Canada's only museum in Normandy dedicated to honouring the contributions of 1.1 million men and women who served during World War II. This year, support a worthy cause and take part in the Remembrance Day races being held until November 28th. You can register for one of 3 virtual race distances, each with its own special meaning. Participants will receive a race kit that includes a commemorative medal, a Juno Beach collector coin, a bracelet, and more. For details and to register, visit junobeach.org. Bring your lunch and enjoy beautiful live music at the same time. Come out November 6th to the first Friday Lunch and Listen concert series featuring performances by the University of Lethbridge Conservatory of Music in Cass's Community Room beginning 12:15 p.m. and ending at 1. First Friday events are an initiative brought to you by the Heart of Our City Committee. For a full listing of upcoming events, visit firstfridaylethbridge.com. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Trying to navigate your teen years isn't always easy, especially in today's world of social media. Today's teens seem to face so many more challenges than they ever have before. My next guest has started a new business endeavor called Bold and Brave to help empower youth to find their voice, their value, and their self-respect, among other things, of course. Dana Holland, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here.
Awesome. So, Dana, I have to say you are very brave to be starting up a business in this COVID environment when so many others are shutting their doors. You're taking on a whole new endeavor. So congratulations, by the way. You really are bold and brave.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Dana, tell me, what is Bold and Brave all about? How did you start it?
Well, Bold and Brave is basically a program that is meant to really help youth. And I guess in turn, it's something that's for everyone. How I look at things is that if you are able to encourage the youth that are around us, there will be a ripple effect. So it'll affect their siblings, their family, their friends, and eventually the community. There's really no stopping these kids. They're going to continue to move forward. And so if we can provide things that build their confidence, I really felt that was super important here at this time.
Mm-hmm. How did you get the idea for it? Are you thinking back to your own youth, perhaps?
There's a portion of that. I know that to me, there wasn't a lot of things that I could go to or that I was confident in looking into, I guess. I wanted to make Bold and Brave something that anyone felt they could go to, felt that they could reach out to, felt they could be part of that community. And it's very much an all-inclusive program, community business. I've been able to speak at a few different programs, which I loved, and I was grateful that they were here and that there's lots of different programs around the city. And I really give accolades to all the people who have gone before me, who help youth. I think that that's an amazing thing and an amazing endeavor. And I just felt there was some things that were being missed. And that's kind of where Bold and Brave came in. I wanted to kind of hit the niches and the different kids that maybe other programs weren't hitting, or maybe they weren't as in the media as much. Maybe they aren't known. And I felt like we could work together within the community, and maybe I pass on people and let them know, hey, there's these other programs, with the whole goal of working together to build kids.
Mm-hmm. So how does the program work exactly?
So right now, being that, like you stated, it's during the COVID time, so a lot of people don't know who I am. They don't know why I'm here. They're just saying, you're just a new person who wants to meet with my kids. So for me, during COVID, we wanted to start out with doing some workshops and putting out basically the information and what we're trying to teach. So there's programs out there that last for weeks at a time, which I think are excellent. But for us, we're going to start out with workshops and really let what we're teaching come out through the youth to promote what we're trying to do.
Okay, so what made you start this now? Is this an idea you've had for a while?
Yeah, I remember back in probably 2012, 2013, I had this thought. But I think at that point, I could probably attest that I probably wasn't as bold or brave as I am now. And I felt, and I know that's totally a play on words and whatnot, but I really felt that at that point I wasn't prepared. Um, Maybe I didn't have the resources, maybe wasn't confident enough. There's a lot of different things going on during that time, but I recently had a few conversations with some people earlier this year, and a few of them were like, "Well, what's your plan?" And I was like, "I don't necessarily have one." They're like, "Well, why don't you make one?" And it was just something as simple as that from a few people who believed in me, who thought that there was a need, that made me literally sit down for about a month um, and get a ton of things together, reached out to a ton of people that I knew, and got the whole ball rolling with our name and with getting things out there and realizing there was so much I needed to do. So I just did it.
Good for you. Congratulations. So why is it so important for you to mentor youth? What is your message to youth?
I think that's a very good question. I think I want youth to know, and any teen to know, that they're important beyond measure. Their lives matter, that they have so much potential, and their opportunities to do so much in this world is beyond what they can even imagine, and lots of times beyond what lots of the adults around them can imagine. Um, you look at lots of people who have done some major things in life, and I bet you there wasn't everyone saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to do that." They just did it. And I think that's one of the coolest pieces to this program, that I want every teen that comes um, to know they're welcome, to know that they're able, to know that they can accomplish anything as long as they have grit and they pursue their dreams and they do the things they need to do, like get educated about things they're interested about. Okay, how do you do that? You go find somebody who knows about it, and give them these tools and these skills to help them realize that really anything's possible, regardless. I guess a huge part is regardless of your situation.
And what are the age group of the kids that we're talking?
Age groups for right now. So we're basically ranging between 11 and 14, or sorry, 11 and 18. Our workshops we're putting on right now are just for the young ladies. Right now, we're doing 11 to 14 for the workshop 1, and workshop 2 is 15 to 18. And we plan to have some workshops for the young men starting in February of 2021.
Okay, yes, and I believe your husband Carl is kind of taking this on with you. And will he be more or less mentoring the young men while you mentor the young ladies?
We're going to kind of play it two ways. We have a bunch of different people that we're working with. I have a local counselor who's been working with me. I have another good friend from Tabor who basically is in basically design arts. She's been doing a ton with me. And I have a couple different like masters, people who are working on their masters in psychology, and who are very much into outdoors, who are other presenters. We also are working with someone from the University of Lethbridge who's one of the hammer throwers. So we have lots of different people that we're reaching out to. We also have someone who's a self-defense instructor. So our goal was to reach all different niches of all different people who have a bunch of different interests, because this isn't just a one size fits all.
Okay, so these would be like your keynote speakers and some other people that you're bringing in to help mentor the youth. So you were saying part of your business is the workshops that you're planning to provide. So tell us about these workshops. What can these kids expect?
A huge part of the workshops is basically to focus on the health and wellness of kids, teens, and all those around them. So huge focus. We're going to be doing a lot of scenario type situations and things that they could encounter. We're going to have kind of planning and thoughts and just different interactive activities. We're also going to have a self-defense, um, and just a lot of interaction. Obviously, COVID, with all the COVID rules, but still to get these teens to know that there's other kids just like them, and that if they work together, they can accomplish so much.
And I think
So,
that's part of, I think part of what youth are suffering from these days is isolation. I mean, now school is back in session, but I think that was a huge thing from March on through the summers. A lot of teens were really suffering with the isolation, and this is kind of a way to bring them together, right?
Yes, and that was a huge thing with the COVID thing. I've had people ask me why now, and for me, there's a lot of kids that need it. So I'm taking a chance with doing this now, but I feel that it's super important, and all these kids, to me, all these teams are worth it. There's a quote that I wanted to kind of just share with you that one of my friends brought up on my Instagram page, and I asked her, I said, what's some times when you felt you were bold and brave? She says, when we lived in our house, a quote that we had on our wall was basically, um, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of courage. Now I was like, this sounds familiar. And there's actually a movie, and it was, I think we bought a zoo, and the whole idea with that is the actual quote is, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Just literally 20 seconds where it's just embarrassing bravery. And the promise is that no matter what, greatness will come with it. And so when I thought about that, I think with these youth, even if they try something and it doesn't go well for them, they know they did it. They know they tried something. They know that maybe that's not going to work for them. But in the back of their mind, they're always like, I tried that. Maybe I didn't like it. Maybe it wasn't for me, but I tried. I didn't let something stop me. I think a huge thing when I was a teenager, I let a lot of stuff stop me. Maybe I was intimidated. Maybe I was discouraged. Maybe I felt I wasn't good enough. And I think in those ways, I can relate to a lot of kids and a lot of teens and their families, and just say, hey, why not try? You may not succeed, but then we can give you tools or help you build those tools that you need to succeed and to keep trying. Because even Michael Jordan, he failed and he's a superstar. So I look at all the different people who they failed in life, and those failures sometimes were the best things for them because it helped them to continue to move forward.
I think you're just really talking about positive role models that these kids are needing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece.
Yeah. So you have a couple of workshops coming up soon in October, right? One's October 16th to 17th. That's for girls ages 11 to 14. And then you have another one October 23rd to 24th for the young ladies 15 to 18. So where can people go for more information about this?
Okay, perfect. So our website is boldandbrave.ca. So we played with the N, so just boldandbrave.ca. And then we also are on Instagram under bold_and_brave, and then Facebook bold space and space brave. So there's lots of information on all those places. Yeah, our email, like our website, has the most information for everybody.
Right. And you have COVID protocols in place as well for these workshops, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we wanted to make sure that, that everyone was safe, because our priority is the safety of everyone who attends as well as their families. But we figure this is something that is worth coming out to. And in turn, these teens will, I think, get a lot out of it.
Yeah. So what can they expect? They show up at the workshops and it's like guest speakers. Are they put into different scenarios and stuff? How are they taught?
Yeah. So basically, they'll be introduced to us. We'll do an introduction with everybody there. We'll do some kind of icebreakers so that everyone can kind of just get used to being there, because that's going to be your group for the 2 days. We have a keynote speaker that night who will then go over part of her situation, or her discussion will be kind of health, mental health, and goals. And then we'll kind of conclude for the night. The next day they'll come back. We'll start right into it with self-defense with one of our other guest, guest speakers. And then we'll do some lunch, scenario-based training afterwards with another keynote speaker and activity at the end. And so it's basically jam-packed, but good.
It does sound jam-packed. It actually sounds like a lot of fun and a great way to maybe connect with other youth and make some friends. You never know.
Yep, that's ultimately the hope. So eventually we hope to do some different events around the city where we kind of host them with other businesses. We're hoping to do one in November where people can get out with their families and do different things. And we just really want it to become a community-based business that everyone within the family can feel like they can reach out and be part of.
Well, excellent. I wish you all the best, Dana, with this brand new endeavor.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Looks like we are closely running out of time, but Dana Holland, founder of Bold and Brave, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Canadians have long believed that freedom of speech is a fundamental right. There seems to be a growing threat to freedom of expression on university and college campuses. Joining me now to chat about this a little bit more is James Kitchen, a lawyer with the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, joining me via Skype from Calgary. James, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me.
Now, can you first of all explain to our viewers what the Campus Freedom Index is all about?
It's a report on the state of free speech generally across the country at universities, but it also contains a detailed report on each public university across the country, of which there's 61. And we give a grade to each university on their policies and on their actions, and also to the student unions as well. So it's an excellent tool, for example, if you're a student or a parent and free speech on campus is something that's really important to you, then you can go and look up your specific university that you're considering about and see where they stand on free speech.
So viewers can read about the whole Campus Freedom Index on your website, but how can you really get into detail about how some of the results are measured?
So there is a website dedicated to the Campus Freedom Index. I think it's campusfreedomindex.ca. And on there's a whole tab dedicated to our methodology. Right, so you can see the criteria that we grade each university on, and how we arrive at the grades we give. We give a letter grade, A down to F, right, just like you would get if you were at university, right? And if you're really good on free speech, you get an A. And if you censored something that year, you're going to get an F.
Now, 61 campuses, as you mentioned, were graded, out of which only 8 A's were given out. Are you guys being a little tough here on the post-secondary institutions, or are we seeing policies that maybe are infringing on people's freedoms?
I wouldn't say we're being tough. I would say that that's just a reflection of the poor state of free speech on Canadian campuses, right? If we gave 0 A's, I would say we're probably being a little tough. But those that get A's have earned them, right? The University of Lethbridge is a good example. It's one of the best every year consistently. Its policies are good, and they almost always follow through on those policies and uphold free speech. There's a lot of universities that have good sounding policies, like the University of Toronto, for example. They don't follow through on them. Right, so they never get a really good grade. Because in order to get an A, you got to get an A in your policies and both in your actions each individual year, right? So it's just, there's a lot of campuses that don't have good policies, and they censor more often than not, and so they're going to get poor grades.
Why do you think it is that some post-secondary institutions are not committing themselves to upholding our freedom of expression, which is a pretty important right here?
Well, I think a lot of universities have lost their way. Right, their whole modus operandi is the search for truth, academic inquiry, free thought, free exploration of ideas, the consideration of all ideas, no matter how unpopular or dissident. At least that's what the university was founded on, right, for hundreds of years. But universities have lost their way, right? They have a very Marxist worldview about them, and Marxism is opposed to that, on a philosophical level, and that's pervaded most universities, right? So. That's just what's happened over the last few decades. They've lost that, and they've strayed into it's all about social justice now, right? Which is not commensurate with free speech. So naturally, we have more censorship than not, because that's a reflection of the ultimate worldview that's shared by these universities' administrations.
Do you think we're seeing a bit of a cancel culture making its way into universities?
I think we're seeing a lot more than a bit. I think cancel culture is something. Actually, I think campuses are ground zero for cancel culture. I think that's where it started. That's where it was born over the last 2 decades, and it's now spreading like a virus, I would say, to the rest of society. Right? It's spreading into the workplace. It's spreading into government offices. It's like a cancer. that is destroying the culture of free speech that a society needs in order to remain free and democratic, right? These institutions are not free and democratic, right? I mean, you say something the wrong way over there, and you lose your job, whether you're a professor, whether you're a non-professor staff. You get academic discipline if you're a student. It's horrendous what happens to these people if they don't speak the orthodoxy when they're on campus.
So in your opinion, how can students and maybe parents of students fight back?
Well, I guess the first thing is to get informed, right? I mean, this is a serious problem that I don't think a lot of people are really aware of until it happens to them, right? They're not really aware of it in general. I mean, I don't think most people think about the free speech situation on a campus before they choose it as the place that they're going to spend 50 grand on and 4 years at, right? That needs to be, if you start making that a criteria, right? I mean, universities are going to essentially give students what they want. If you want this cuddly little place where you don't have to see or listen to anything you don't like, if enough students want that, that's what they're going to get. That's what the university is going to give them. So if students and parents start demanding that free speech is a critical part of their education, then maybe the universities will respond a little bit. That's probably the first place to start.
Now let's circle back to the University of Lethbridge, James, for just a moment here. It received an A grade, but the A grade was given for the university's policies and practices, and only a C was given for the U of L student union's policies and practices. Why the discrepancy there?
Well, that's not uncommon. Student unions tend to be even worse than universities, right? Because they're run by students, right? And a lot of students these days are very, very progressive, socially, politically, in their worldview. Which they buy into a lot of the Marxist narrative and the social justice narrative, and of course within that narrative, within that worldview, there's very little tolerance for dissident or unpopular expression or uncomfortable expression, right? There can't be anything other than the orthodox view, and anything to do with sexuality or gender or race or historical oppression or anything like that. Climate change, litany of issues, right? And it tends to be the more progressive students that want to get into student government, right? The whole change the world kind of thing. And the business students who maybe take a more progressive or more conservative outlook on the world, they're not the ones that are running to run the campus, right? To run the student union. So generally their policies are terrible because it's all social justice oriented type policies. And, they don't tolerate dissent. They don't tolerate different opinions, right? If there's some conservative student that's saying something they don't like, that maybe questions BLM, for example, they want to shut that down, right? So very few student unions in the country, regardless of how good the university is, are good on free speech. It's not there.
James, let's also consider the increase of universities who received failing grades. Many of these universities, while publicly defending freedom of expression when pushed, they'd rather censor or cancel, leading to that cancel culture we were just discussing, events that they deem politically incorrect. What are your thoughts?
I think sometimes that's a reflection of the, personal political views of the administration. Sometimes, but I think a lot of other times it's that the universities are not necessarily politically motivated. I think they're quite apolitical, but they're just very scared. They're not willing to take the risk and use the resources to defend free speech. So one of the most common examples that we see from the administration will say, well, there's a security threat, right? Antifa is going to come and pull the fire alarm or protest or smash windows or threaten people or push people, and we don't want to deal with that. So because of that, we're not going to allow this to go ahead. That's the most common excuse, right? Which isn't so much that the university is necessarily faving censorship. They don't want to see that happen, right? They don't want to see all this violence. They'd like people just be able to talk and it be civil, right? But when push comes to shove, there's a lot of universities that aren't willing to take a stance and say, you know what? Yes, this is going to cost us some money and security, but we're going to put our money where our mouth is, and we're going to defend free speech, and we're going to get security there, and we're going to protect people's ability to talk. We're not going to let people throw things and ring the cowbells and pull the fire alarms. We're going to do the right thing. Most universities they're not committed enough to free speech to make that expense.
Now, James, let's chat a bit about Jessica Yaniv, a transgender activist who until recently had filed numerous human rights complaints. Can you share a little bit of backstory and the outcome of these complaints?
So the backstory is that Jessica filed several human rights complaints against several aestheticians who specialized in body waxing, right? Specifically, what Jessica wanted was the waxing of the groin genital area, right? Which is a very specialized procedure. And these women, many of which are immigrant women and have, very important religious and cultural beliefs about, being around a person with male genitalia. So they refused. And so on that basis, Jessica filed a complaint claiming gender identity and gender expression. So ultimately, those complaints were not upheld, and the complainants, or sorry, the respondents, the statisticians, they won basically. That's what the outcome of that was. A few more complaints were filed afterwards. Those were eventually dropped. So at this point right now, all the aestheticians who were looking at trouble with the Human Rights Commission have won, and they're able to continue on, and they've not been penalized, and we consider that the proper outcome.
Have some of the complainants maybe taken it upon themselves to maybe sue Jessica now, saying you put our business, you put us through a lot of trauma and stress, and now we need to be compensated for this?
It was traumatizing for some of them, right? To go through this experience. Jessica did end up paying costs. It's unusual, but sometimes the Human Rights Commission will award costs when complainants cause a lot of trouble, as Jessica did. And so some costs were paid by Jessica and were received by the complainants.
Do we know how much?
Or sorry, by the respondents. I believe the amount was $6,000.
Okay. Now, is there anything, James, that can be done to prevent individuals from continuously launching what appears to be frivolous human rights complaints? I mean, many times these complaints make life very difficult for people you just talked about who are simply trying to earn an honest living.
It's a serious problem. There is. I mean, one of the deterrents, right, is the costs, right? Costs are used by whether it's courts or tribunals to deter those sorts of frivolous complaints, right? So Jessica's aware that if more frivolous complaints come in, there's going to be cost consequences. Eventually, I think there is a process by which we could petition the tribunal to declare Jessica as a vexatious complainant, and in that case, there'd be a further barrier to Jessica filing further complaints. And I mean, I'd like to see that happen if this continues. At this point, there's no pending complaints. They've all been withdrawn.
The Justice Centre has also issued a legal warning to Alberta Health Minister Tyler Shandro on behalf of a Calgary businesswoman who's prohibited from leaving her home even to walk her dog. What is this case all about?
So that's to do with the mandatory universal quarantine. Right. And what I mean by universal is that regardless of symptoms, regardless of negative test results, these quarantine measures are in place. Right. Which in our perspective is overbroad. Right. It does make sense so far as it goes to quarantine someone who is experiencing symptoms or has tested positive. But beyond that, it's a serious rights infringement. Right. I mean, it's essentially house arrest. Right. To be stuck at home. That's a penal sanction. Right, and people should not be incurring that unless there's actually at least some evidence that they may be actually infected. If there's no symptoms and there's a negative test result, it doesn't make any sense, and so it's a rights violation that doesn't have anything to justify it. So in that specific case, we had gone to court this last Friday to get an injunction. We were not successful, although we felt that it was a good case. It was worth the time. The judge was very receptive. And this is something we're probably going to continue to explore because these quarantines of massive numbers of healthy people has to come to an end.
Now, the City of Edmonton has outfitted the high-level bridge with 60,000 programmable lights through the Light the Bridge program. James, the City of Edmonton invites members of the public and community groups to request the bridge be lit up in specific colors to reflect basically their event, cause, or campaign. Now, in 2019, the Alberta March for Life Association applied to the City of Edmonton to have the bridge lit up in the colors of pink, blue, and white, and the application was approved by the city, but then later cancelled due to the polarizing nature of the subject matter. Can you explain how the Justice Centre is moving on this?
So we filed a court application challenging that decision. We're also challenging the criteria under which the city made the decision, because of course in their criteria, they grant themselves the right to cancel anything they unilaterally consider to be polarizing. course, we don't know what polarizing means. There's no definition of that, and it could mean anything under the sun. And of course, as any astute observer will see, any number of things can be polarizing, right? Anytime you have a topic on which there's some disagreement, and that's most topics in the world, you're going to have some polarization, because you're going to have some people that agree with it and some people that oppose it. So we filed a court application challenging that as an infringement of free speech, right? Because the government, as they got this bridge, they have lights, and the public is able to ask that the bridge be lit up in their color, right? So that's a form of expression, kind of a strange one. There's no words involved, right? It's just colors, but there's still expressive content. There's meaning there, right? When the bridge is lit up for orange and blue, everybody knows it's for the Oilers. There's meaning in those colors, right? So there's meaning when the bridge is lit up for what people want it to be lit up for, which means that space, that bridge, is actually constitutionally protected, right? So the government cannot censor what colors go on that bridge based on the content, unless there's a good reason for it, right? So we say what the city of Edmonton has done is they've infringed the free speech rights of the March for Life, and so we're going to be seeking a declaration from the court that decision is null and void because it's unconstitutional, right? It's a breach of free expression.
James Kitchen, lawyer for the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. Thanks for joining me today from Flames Country, Calgary.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.